Welcome back to episode 2 of Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. I am Miguel Marnan, and today, with this video, we go from Mount Moon all the way to Gym Leader Misty, Kasumi in the Japanese version. One thing that I do like about this game is just how cool the region of Kanto is. There's just so much in this game that is concentrated into a small map, but definitely a map with things to do. And that's one of the things that I believe Scarlet and Violet failed to do. Scarlet and Violet definitely had the much more expansive map and also had better maneuverability, but it didn't really matter considering you did not unlock enough content to make that worthwhile. Here, I'm going to be doing something that I can't do in Scarlet and Violet. That is entering non-story required buildings. That's right, I'm going there. Because when I first got to play Pokemon Violet on my Nintendo Switch, when it came out, the day of release, I questioned the first area in the town where you can't get into the building. As a matter of fact, I might even post a clip from our first episode of the Violet Let's Play to demonstrate how I felt back in those days. In the original games, it was just every increment of 10, you get a Premier Ball. Ah, yes, this
What?
thing. So let's say you buy 30 Ultra Balls. You're gonna get 3 Premier Balls. True or false?
Yeah.
But that's besides the point. Here, I'm playing, and I'm just so happy that I can not only walk around, but also talk to the people. And that is something that I really wish was kept from Scarlet and Violet. Sadly, Scarlet and Violet got rid of that, and I believe it only hindered the experience, as it made the Pokemon world significantly less lively. And while I can admit that not everybody wants to see me talk to all of the NPCs, you better believe I'm gonna talk to all of the NPCs. Why? Because I am just here to prove the truth that this game is not only a more polished experience, but also a more fulfilling experience than Scarlet and Violet. One thing that I don't like is the censorship. Why didn't they reference the year of the launch of the shuttle and all of the significant events? And yes, I know what happened. I'm not ignorant. But to just brush it off is, I think it's a bit disrespectful. But then again, Nintendo is the company that's making the money, and I'm not the runner of Nintendo. I'm just some guy on the internet, by comparison. So I'll let them make their decision. In addition, because I know that watching me move back and forth throughout these maps would get repetitive, I'm actually going to get creative with the entrance gates. If you see me enter a building and leave the building, don't be surprised if I exit out of a different building or if I enter into a new building. The reason? It saves everyone time, and given Kanto is the most well-known region in this series, we all know this map. If you're a first-time Pokemon player, then I think you could follow along with where I'm going. So it is not worth demonstrating the walk throughout all the maps. And like I said, despite the fact these are significantly smaller maps than Scarlet and Violet, I do want to point out that there's just so much more to do in here. You can get items, you can get hints on what to do if you're a first-time player. You can get some funny dialogue. There's just character to Kanto that I believe Paldea does not have. In other words, reject Paldea, return to Kanto. If the next game is either a Unova remake or Legend Celebi, I'll be very happy, because I like Unova. And if it's Legend Celebi, then hell yeah, because not only will we return to Johto, there's also a chance that we can return to Kanto. Now again, I'm well aware of the fact that a lot of people are actually sick of Kanto, and while I don't agree with that, considering I love this region so freaking much, I understand why some people would get sick of it. But at the end of the day, 2026 is the 30th anniversary. If they don't bring back Kanto, I'll be surprised. I genuinely will be surprised. And like I said before, unless they are a story-related battle or a facility trainer, I am going to be skipping the battles. Think of this playthrough as the Pokemon Origins rendition of the Kanto story, only with the new characters. And one thing is that I did originally try to demonstrate all of the battles. At one point, I had the idea of, I'll show off every trainer. But then I realized that the battles in this game are actually much easier than the battles in the original Red, Blue, Yellow, Green, as even the teams of the enemy trainers have been nerfed. Either because they believed the game was too hard, even though I think Red and Blue are some of the easier games in the series, or because they were so focused on getting that Pokemon Go market that they failed to realize that the majority of people who played this, I'm willing to bet, were the diehards. The people who have been playing Pokemon for years and will continue to play them. I know I said this in the first episode, but I'll say it again. Pokemon was never meant to be a crazy, bonkers hard game, but it always had some level of challenge. Why is this in the video? I might cut this out. Oops. I thought I edited that out. Well, you got to see me absolutely abuse the catching mechanic in this episode then. That was most definitely unintentional. But besides that, I'm pretty sure I cut out the rest of the battles, so don't worry about that. Specifically, the wild encounters. Other than this, it should be good to go. Continuing onwards, we are going to make it through Mount Moon, and one of the things that this game does is it incorporates content from Pokemon Yellow. I'm more okay with them incorporating content from Pokemon Yellow, simply because the character we play as are not Red and Blue. We're not playing as the original trainers, and our rival is most certainly not Green. We're playing as these new kids whose names I don't know. They probably have names somewhere in the wiki, but how do I figure that name out? I have no idea. I do like this game a lot, and I love the whole collaborative aspect. It always felt like we were missing something. Just a friend to tag along with us during the main campaign, to help us throughout the adventure. I really do like that idea, because we see in the games other NPCs, such as the twins, or even Tate and Liza, gym leaders, working together in a Pokemon battle. And the fact is that we haven't been able to do that since this game. You could say Scarlet and Violet, but the problem is Scarlet and Violet does not let you view the battles of the opposite trainer. You're still playing single player. They're just in the map with you. But here is a true multiplayer experience. And now we've entered Mount Moon, and we've encountered Jesse and James, Kojiro and Musashi for Japanese audiences. And one thing that I found interesting is that they decided to not keep in the talking Meowth. I believe that it's because they assumed that the casual market would recognize Jesse and James, but they would not know that Meowth could talk. And admittedly, I think that is a fair assumption. I have had my gripes with casuals being the people who determine the market of games, because it does... Okay, I'm just failing this one. How did I not remove that? Wow. Okay. I'm gonna check. Do I remove any other wild battles? You know what? Not even gonna check. If I keep them in, I keep them in. I might cut them out, but then it would cut off my sentences. Oh well. I guess you get to see some wild battles, just so you can see how easy it is to break this game. This game is not a hard game whatsoever. In fact, I would argue it's one of the easiest games ever made. Easier than Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. Easier than Generation 2 on original hardware. But that's besides the point. This game, like I said, has no challenge. But despite that, it's still a better experience to me than Scarlet and Violet, which actually did do one thing over this game. It had an essence of challenge, but it still wasn't as well crafted as, I think, Black and White 2, Black and White 1, Platinum, and Heart Gold and Soul Silver were. And those 4 games actually changed the balancing to make the games challenging, but not stupidly hard. in different ways. Platinum just gave teams to the enemy trainers that were well put together and powerful. Heart Gold and Soul Silver forced you to work under the weakness economy, given that most Johtonian Pokemon are quite weak in terms of their base stats, so you were most definitely challenged in that regard. In terms of Black and White 1, the difficulty came from not knowing any of the Pokemon on first playthrough, considering that all over 150 of them, I believe it's 156, were Pokemon you could only encounter from native to Unova that were unobtainable regarding the older Pokemon. You were stuck with the modern Pokemon, the 156, I believe that's the number, Unovan Pokemon, and you were not allowed to use any of your old favorites. Black and White 2 actually follows the Diamond Pearl Platinum traits of just giving enemy teams good teams, and having the very smart decision to include a beginner mode, a normal mode, and a challenge mode. And the fact that we haven't had one of those in a long time is concerning. The only other game on Switch that I believe is a better experience than this one would be Legends Arceus. But that's because Legends Arceus is not truly a Pokemon game. It's closer to an open zone game like Mario Odyssey or Sonic Frontiers. And it has Breath of the Wild styled maneuverability. Not combat. The combat is basic as it can get. But maneuverability. Okay, so it does seem that I cut out most of the wild battles. I guess 2 of them just slipped through me during the editing process. Oh well. One thing that I genuinely like and dislike at the same time is the way they handled wild encounters in this game. Wild encounters in this game are not random. You can see them very clearly on the map. And because of that, Nuzlocke in this game is actually a pain, because a wild battle in this game that is... Let me try it again. A trainer battle in this game, typically, historically, would yield greater experience than wild encounters. But in this game, a trainer battle yields less experience than a wild encounter. They really want you to prioritize catching Pokemon in this game as opposed to battling Pokemon. And once again, I know why this was done. This was done to have the Pokemon Go crowd show up to the main series. I genuinely do wonder, based on sales numbers, how many people on the Pokemon Go team decided to migrate to the main series games. And by team, I mean user base, not developers. And okay, that's another thing that absolutely messes with me in this game. The fact is, I remember the hidden items of Kanto so well that because they changed the location of the hidden items in this game, you will catch me attempt to use the A button to click on a location where on the original hardware there was a hidden item, but now there isn't, or it's moved somewhere else. That's more of a case of me, being very, very biased towards games featuring Kanto. I just love Kanto, man. I love the way the region is designed. I love the aesthetic. I like the map design too. The map design is just so well made. It, especially compared to Galar and Paldea. Especially fucking Paldea. I cannot stand the Paldean map design. Man, the fact of the matter is, I know that there are a lot of people who actually think Scarlet and Violet are great entries in the series. I don't know anyone who thinks it's the best entry, but I definitely know people who think they are great. And that take concerns me, considering the fact that I believe the only reason people put up with it is because the modern gaming industry hasn't been as good as it was since maybe 2013 at the latest, probably even earlier. It hasn't been as good as 2013 and prior years. And you can tell because when a game releases, the first question isn't, is the game fun? The first question is, will it be broken on day one and require a patch? I am dead serious. The amount of people I have interacted with whose first question when seeing a game is, will it work properly? Assuming they are interested in the game itself, just shows me that it's become expected to have patches. Okay, call me old if you want, but I remember when you got a game out of the box and it just worked. I remember the days before the day one patch, or before you had to install the stuff, even after inserting the disc. Again, you can call me old all you want, but that's just not how I see it. The way I see it is that a lot of these modern games are just not good. The one that I don't understand at all, because I think it's baffling, is Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. That game is ass, okay? Trash. I asked my younger brother, who is not related by blood, what he thinks of the game. He also said it's, and I quote him, piece of shit. And once again there, you see me attempting to find the moonstone that should be there, but isn't. I'm going to be showing off this battle intentionally because it is a story-related battle. Picking the fossil is a story cutscene, as it requires returning to the museum to either get the old amber, and it also has some relevance in the Cinnabar Island section of the game. So near the end of the game, this fossil does make a return. Therefore, I will be demonstrating the fight against the super nerd Miguel. And once again, I'm just showing off why this game is so easy. The fact that you can have 2 Pokemon out and your opponents are stuck with 1 puts you at such an overwhelming advantage. And it's ridiculous. I genuinely think it's so broken that they allowed you to do this. I love the idea. I genuinely like the idea of them doing this. But I believe that if you have a second player, all Pokemon battles should just become double battles. I think that would make it more fair to the game and keep the challenge going. I understand the idea though. They want potentially an older player, typically a parent, usually a father, to play with his kid. And his kid has never played Pokemon, so if he wants to make it fun, they're going to work together, they're going to participate together, and they're going to have fun because they're not frustrated at the difficulty. Again, my biggest gripe with this game is that it is targeted towards the casuals. Features such as the wild encounters changing or the addition of Jesse and James don't bother me in a technical sense. It's more of a remembrance sense. The fact of the matter is, I remember the Kanto games a certain way, and when things change, it makes me question my memories at times. But then I think about it logically, and my memories return. This is one of the few double battles in the game. There are very, very few of them. And I believe that most, if not all of them, are with Jesse and James here, who I believe were just called Rocket in the original English release of the game. And pretty much, you don't really get to see my team in this playthrough unless it's for a story cutscene battle, so any attachment to my team is probably going to be next to zero, especially since I don't really reference the team. Call me weird, but most people that I know actually develop an attachment to their team, and that's something that always made me question people's enjoyment of this series, because I play this game primarily because I think that the Monster Collection rock paper scissors battle aspect is very fun to me. It's a very intriguing concept. It's kind of like rock paper scissors, only with more skill involved. And don't get me wrong, there is competitive rock paper scissors, but even then, playing singles Pokemon has more gameplay elements than rock paper scissors ever could. And I don't think that I think that if you put me in a room with a competitive rock paper scissors player and a competitive Pokemon player who plays singles, which isn't as common because most of them play doubles, but you get the point. I believe that they will both come to an agreement that their game of choice, specifically Pokemon, is more complex than Rock, Paper, Scissors is. But still, both have their own charm in their own ways, especially considering that Rock, Paper, Scissors, assuming your hand is not deformed or disabled, is one of the most accessible games. Because you don't need any hardware to run it. You just need a hand with movable fingers. That's pretty much it. And with that, we've made it through Mount Moon. Historically, that was one of the longest dungeons in this game. I remember my first playthrough on Leaf Green Fire Red. I spent an hour and 10 minutes in there. I'm not kidding. It was so crazy. I found a bunch of shiny Zubats though. I think I found 2. Which isn't a bunch now that I say that out loud, but it felt like a bunch because it's so rare. There are entire playthroughs of games that I play where I don't get a single legendary. And I just find that fascinating. How sometimes you don't get a legendary, sometimes you don't get a shiny, and more. We finally made it to Cerulean City. Arguably one of the coolest designed cities in this game. And I stand by, this city is much more memorable than whatever the hell the Water City was called in Scarlet and Violet. I'm going to be making some comparisons to Scarlet and Violet during this playthrough, as it isn't obvious enough. But please note that it's not out of hatred for Scarlet and Violet, but rather my enjoyment and appreciation of Let's Go Eevee. I also have Let's Go Pikachu. I bought both versions just because I liked Eevee so much. I didn't want to delete my save data, so I bought Pikachu just to play it with a different starter, because I grew up with 2 versions of the original games primarily, those being Pokemon Yellow and Pokemon Green. That's right, I had a Japanese exclusive cartridge that I grew up with. Pokemon Red and Blue, I didn't play until the 3DS Virtual Console, and for the most part, they're the same game. In fact, Blue is almost identical to Green, only difference being sprite work and maybe some changes to encounter rates. But then again, that's how most of these Pokemon versions are. They've gotten better with it in recent years, especially starting with Black and White, where it was very noticeable, the changes between versions, but it still gave you the complete experience from beginning to end. And here we go to the gym, and this is just another case. If they're giving you, the player, so many options to deal with the enemy trainers, why nerf Cosme? Why nerf Misty? Why make one of the hardest gym leaders in the original game one of the easiest gym leader? Albeit, this fight actually features something that many of fights in this game will not feature. The fact of the matter is, I had a Pokemon faint during this gym battle. And currently, as of recording, I've made it up to the rival battle in SS Anne, and that is the only time, to my knowledge, that I have had a Pokemon faint. And likely it'll be the only time until the Elite Four that a Pokemon will faint on me. Seriously. There's a person on YouTube.com called Some Call Me Johnny. I think he put it best when he said that the game skews the battles so far in your favor that any semblance of challenge is gone when you just put in a modicum of effort. That's not his exact sentence, and that's most definitely not how he worded it, but the spirit of his message is there. And here's something else. I'm showing off the battles here in the gym because these are facility battles. Since a gym is a facility, I'm gonna show it off. The only other times where I will generally just show off any battles outside of boss encounters are going to be the Sylph Corporation, Team Rocket HQ, and Lavender Tower. Other than that, unless it's at a gym, or a boss trainer, or a rival fight, or a story fight, the trainers will be skipped. I'm actually going into this location quite underleveled. In fact, the only Pokemon on my team that should be here, realistically, is Eevee. And it really does show how broken they make your starter. I believe they give it perfect IVs, for one, and two, you have access to some of the most broken moves right here. In fact, I forgot about them until after I beat this gym, but if I went ahead and actually obtained the 3 special elemental moves for Eevee, then this fight would have gone even more smoothly, and I'm willing to bet I would not have lost a single Pokemon. Meaning that the only reason I lost a Pokemon in this gym is because I didn't take advantage of the game systems. And even then, it wasn't such a painful loss, considering the fact that I still managed to win very easily. This is not a hard game. Admittedly, one thing that I do find odd is that they actually do this thing where they change the Pokemon that the enemy trainers have, and that genuinely messes with me. Because you're not seeing it, obviously, but what I do is I go in the menu and I switch the order of my Pokemon, and then I get into the battle and I'm just saying, what the hell? That's not right. That's not right. It did get to a point in the original games, specifically Green, where I would switch my team around for every trainer encounter because I just knew the order of the Pokemon in the original games that every trainer sent out. I didn't have any names, I just knew if I saw that the screen looked a certain way because of how the map was formatted on the screen, I knew exactly what Pokemon they would send out. And because of that, when I played this game, it just messes with me. For example, here, I thought she was gonna send out Staryu, but nope, it's Psyduck because they need to coincide with the anime. And that's fine. I understand these changes. They have to nerf, or they have to make changes for the casual audience, because definitely, they definitely nerfed Misty here. Misty is nowhere near as difficult as she was in the original game. And the reason she was so hard in Red, Blue, Yellow, Green is because of the level jump. Especially considering that many people picked Charmander, the fight with Misty was brutal if you did that and didn't catch a grass or electric type. And even if you did catch an electric type, such as Pikachu here, Pikachu is such a fragile little rat that it just falls to the most basic of attacks. But it doesn't really matter because, you the player have access to your broken starter Pokemon. And Eevee is broken. Absolutely bonkers overpowered. And it's not even fair. Watch this. We get hit, doesn't even do half. Bite, super effective, and then lastly, this Vine Whip ends it with Starmie. Where was the challenge? I lost one Pokemon in a battle, and that's about it. And I'm pretty sure that unless the rival that comes up right after this encounter takes out a Pokemon, I pretty much go without losing a single Pokemon the entire run. And I'm willing to bet I could take it all the way to Elite 4 before I lose a Pokemon. Mostly because this game, like I said, difficulty-wise is a joke. I believe they should have added a easy, normal, hard. Easy mode would have just been called newcomer. This is best for people who have never played a Pokemon game, and that would have been the mode for the Pokemon Go players. Standard mode is people who have played a Pokemon game, and lastly, a challenge mode for people who have played Pokemon at a really high level and are just generically good at it. Think of it as the legendary mode in Halo. It's not the way the game is meant to be played, but definitely, it is a great way for people who think the game is too easy. Lastly, there is one more encounter for this video, and that is the fight against our friend, Tracy. I don't know why they gave him that name, but they did. I called him Fujiki. I wanted to name my character Revolver because of the Yu-Gi-Oh reference, but I don't think they'll let you. So at the last moment, I decided, okay, we know that Eevee is voiced by Aoyuki, who is Madoka Kaname. So I figured that was the best name to name her, Aoi. In fact, if you look at the first episode, you can tell that I originally named the Eevee Madoka, but then I changed it because I found out that the Eevee was a boy. Man, if the Eevee was a girl, I would have named it Madoka, but I didn't. We evolved Nidoqueen here. We didn't want to evolve it earlier because a wider type gym like Misty absolutely shreds Nidoqueen here, so it's best to do it afterwards. But then again, most of this team, you will barely see them. That's just how the game works. And now, onto the fight against the rival. Assuming I'm not absolutely discombobulated, what am I doing? Oh right, I'm showing off the buildings because this game actually respects the player and allows us to enter buildings without railroading us into them. Which again, modern Pokemon has not let us done in a while. Another change is they removed the bike, which I didn't like. Instead they offer you ride Pokemon, like Arcanine. But I didn't like that. I would have preferred to keep the map. And the bike. Actually, do you even get a map in this game? I have no idea. I actually don't think you get a map in this game. I'll have to check. I don't know if you do. Anyways, now we go to the rival. I've been hyping up the rival fight. But here's another thing. They nerfed it. They nerfed the rival fight. Why? I don't know. But they did. And you'll see how in a little bit. You have to walk up to Nugget Bridge. And instead of leading with a level 18 Pidgeotto, he leads with some nonsense. And you'll see the nonsense if you've never played this before. If you have played this before, then you know exactly why I was frustrated. I just beat Misty, Kasumi, and saw that she was nerfed. But I figured, okay, at least the rival is going to give me a good challenge, right? No. Not even close. First of all, they got rid of one of his Pokemon, the Abra. Okay, fine. It was kind of worthless in the original games, but at least giving it Flash gave it something to do. And also, I don't know, the rival in this game, he's just not as cool as Green was. Green was just the coolest to me. To me, obviously. I don't know about everyone else, but to me, Green was the coolest. Oh, if anyone wonders why I call the rival Green instead of Blue, it's because I grew up with Pokespa, and Pokespa, in that manga, he's called Green, and the girl trainer's called Blue. I know that many people call the 8th gym leader of Kanto in Heart Gold and Soul Silver Blue, but that's not how I grew up calling him. If anyone has a problem with that, well, too bad. So first, the Pidgey's weak, then we have an Oddish, which is a weird pick. In the original games, he had the Pidgeot, the Abra, the Rattata, and his starter. Oddish is not a threat, but I guess it could explain how he defeats Kasumi at some point in the game, because it's implied that the rival already won the fights. But actually, if you enter into the gym and look at the trainers that already won, his name is there. There is no way he beat the gym with his Pokemon at this level. Part of what made the rival so much more believable in the original games is because you could actually take his team and movesets and beat the game with it. And it wasn't crazy hard, it was actually fair and doable. Which gave credence to him actually becoming champion before you. But in this game, if you take, Tracy's team here into this gym, where we just saw me fight Kasumi, I would lose. There would be no chance I win. So it just loses his impact. I also don't like that they make him another kind rival again. At least he doesn't pick the starter weak to you, but that's because he doesn't have a choice, not because he's because he's an asshole or something. But for the most part, that'll be it for this episode of Pokemon Let's Go Eevee. I want to thank all of you so much for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed. And if you liked it, please share it to people, because I want more people to see this playthrough. Have a nice evening, or day, depending on what time you watch this, obviously.